These are some of the headlines for May 17th, 2019. By Ahmed Abdul Karim, Mint Press News. At least 77 civilians, including women and children, as well as 2 Russian citizens, who were killed or injured in a wave of Saudi led coalition airstrikes on various neighborhoods of Yemen's capital, Sana'a, on early Thursday. The son of Abdullah Sabri, the president of the Union of Yemeni Journalists, was also among the dead. The Sabri home was destroyed in the attack. The attacks have enraged local residents who took to the streets of Raqqa to condemn the airstrikes and loss of civilian life, calling for counterattacks on coalition forces. Most here hold the United States responsible for the attacks, as the United States supplies Saudi Arabia with advanced weapons as well as logistical and intelligence assistance. The Saudi-led coalition confirmed that its warplanes carried out airstrikes in Sana'a on Thursday. We have begun to launch airstrikes targeting sites operated by Houthi militias, including in Sana'a, a coalition official who declined to be identified told AFP. So far, the United States has not commented on the airstrikes. From The Nation by Mashal Hashem and James Allen. How lobbying firms helped destroy Yemen. In 2018 alone, weapons manufacturers who spend millions in lobbying efforts to retain political support in Washington made over $5 billion in arms sales to Saudi Arabia and the UAE. From The Grit Post by Caitlin Cavell. Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez asked the Gilead CEO the list price of Truvada for pre-exposure prophylaxis is almost $2,000 in the US. Why is it $8 in Australia? She went on to say, "We the public, we the people, developed this drug. We paid for this drug. We led and developed all of the groundbreaking patents to create PrEP, and then that patent has been privatized despite the fact that the patent is owned by the public. We refused to enforce it," said Ocasio-Cortez. "There is no reason this should be $2,000 a month." Despite prescription drug prices being a rare bipartisan issue, with both President Trump and Senator Sanders rallying against high prices, Republicans on the House Oversight and the Reform Committee seemed defensive of Gilead, focusing on research costs rather than drug prices. Gilead's exclusive rights to Truvada in the United States expire in September of 2020. From the Associated Press, Anthony Izaguirre and Jeff Moheville. 5 more state attorney generals announced legal filings Thursday seeking to hold the company that makes OxyContin responsible for an opioid addiction crisis that has become the biggest cause of accidental deaths across the country and in many states. The new filings in Iowa, Kansas, Maryland, West Virginia, and Wisconsin mean 45 states have now taken legal action in recent years against Purdue. Michigan announced last week that it's looking for law firms to help it sue the industry too. From Truthout by Marjorie Kahn. Today, law enforcement agents broke into the Venezuela embassy in Washington, D.C., and arrested 4 remaining members of the Embassy Protection Collective. For 36 days, the protectors had lived in the embassy to shield it from a raid by U.S. authorities working in concert with opponents of Venezuela's lawfully elected president, Nicolas Maduro. Since U.S. officers had refused to allow food into the embassy, only 4 of some of the 50 members of the collective had stayed in order to conserve supplies. The Trump administration has been trying to engineer an unlawful coup and regime change in Venezuela. After U.S. puppet Juan Guaido declared himself interim president of Venezuela on January 23rd, high Trump officials quickly ratified his declaration. The United States government seek to illegally install Guaido and a new ambassador in the D.C. embassy as part of its coup attempt. From Common Dreams. Eon Higgins, staff writer. Israeli forces opened fire Wednesday on Palestinians protesting the 71st anniversary of the Nakba and their decades-long life under the boot of a merciless occupation, which is slowly starving the Gaza Strip's population with the explicit backing of the United States government. From Democracy Now!, Nareem Shaki and Amy Goodman. Nearly every country in the world, but not the United States, took a historic step to curb plastic waste last week when more than 180 nations agreed to add plastic to the Basel Convention, a treaty that regulates the movement of hazardous materials between countries. The United States is one of just 2 countries that has not ratified the 30-year-old treaty. During negotiations last week in Geneva, the Environmental Protection Agency and the United States and the State Department joined the plastics industry in trying to thwart the landmark legally binding agreement. Despite this, the United States will still be affected by the agreement because countries will be able to block the dumping of mixed or recyclable plastic wastes from other nations. The amended treaty will make it much more difficult for wealthy countries to send their plastic waste to poorer countries by prohibiting nations from exporting plastic waste that is not ready for recycling. Only 9% of plastic is recycled. The UN estimates there are more than 100 million tons of plastic waste in the world oceans. By Sasha Ambreski. Truth Out. 7 of the 10 GOP primary voters are sympathetic to the main ideas of the Loan Shark Prevention Act introduced last week by Senator Bernie Sanders and Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, according to a Business Insider poll. The legislative proposal would cap the interest rates that the credit card companies and payday lenders can charge consumers at 15%. The surprising show of support from GOP voters for the goals of the bill suggests the base of support for efforts to rein in loan sharks crosses party lines in ways that leaders of the Republican Party may be reluctant to admit. In addition to the unexpected support from GOP voters, 73% of Democratic primary voters polled by a Business Insider said they support the proposal. In addition to capping the interest rates that credit card companies charge, the bill would also allow the Postal Service to carry out certain financial functions, such as check cashing and letting customers pay bills directly via the Postal Service, as a way to cut out profiteering middlemen, institutions like payday lenders. From The Real News. Chelsea Manning in prison after refusing to testify. Freed 8 days ago, Manning was subpoenaed before a new grand jury investigating Assange. Despite grave danger to her health, she refused to testify, saying she would rather die in prison than change her principles. Turning to Brazil, Bolsonaro's education austerity mobilizes hundreds of thousands across Brazil. Hundreds of thousands of students and educators took to the streets across Brazil in protest against Jair Bolsonaro's draconian neoliberal attack on education. These have been some of the headlines with Outraged News. Thank you.